they said they must be ready. So when we bring you in, you disconnect Ssemujju. And they told me all the other facilities the same problem. So the Ofwono Opondo may not have mismanaged the response, but they did not disclose how incapable they were in case we faced with this big problem. But they over-politicized the spread as if it is caused by one problem. So where we are, this is what I think, Oscar. It's difficult now to stop the elections, and the consequences will be there the moment these elections are over. But also because we are unable to stop the markets, to stop the socialization in business and so on. The other day, my wife went to Chikuvu and she said, I can never go back to those areas downtown. Said the askaris who are supposed to enforce the regulations, they are just sleeping. People just walk in, they don't wash, no masks.
They're tired and haven't eaten in
and then said even the traders themselves, they say, all of us are affected now, let's just continue with life. There are more adverts now of Museveni looking for a vote than there are adverts of Minister of Health warning the dangers of COVID. So the Museveni that you want to parade as someone who cares about the country, he actually cares about himself. You can count, because these things are countable. During the news, you have about 7 adverts of how he's going to secure the future of people who are dying. There is none for Minister of Health at the moment. And this is the government that wants to fight COVID, and then telling Ssemujju, for you are careless, you care about elections. If you have 7 adverts looking for a vote and none for Minister of Health about COVID, Ofwono Opondo, whose future do you want to secure?
Nanfi, when the pandemic broke out, you were extremely worried then. And Nanfi, don't politicize the thing. But when it had broken out, you were so worried about it and so on. But now, it looks like you're no longer worried.
Are in Kampala about COVID? Count the one of Museveni.
My worry was the downplaying that the government was doing, and people like Oscar who thought Museveni can do a good job at anything.
He did.
That was my worry.
Oscar is to blame also.
You know, he kept going on and on for once he's done. So I'm like, no.
But he did well now. You know, when you have a country where the deaths are 200 and infections are 20,000, we cannot even compare with Kenya.
Do we know?
There's a time they give that kind of thing where someone does well in the interim, like for a short period, but then they go back to their usual self. I'll find the term. They go back to their usual modus operandi. But like I said, if a child has been bottom in the class for years, there's no way they are now third in the class unless they.
So for you, why have you stopped worrying about COVID when the numbers are going up?
It's not that I stopped worrying, Oscar. One of the things I try to do is to read a lot, and when there is something that like COVID that comes up, I read a lot, and I have friends in the health sector, friends at the highest level handling this kind of thing, and I ask them as many questions as I can. One of the things that occurred to me that this being a flu virus, we will do little, whatever we do, it is here. And whatever measures we take are just to stay for a short time. But it's with us, and now we have to deal with it. What really bothered me was the way Uganda was going about it, putting measures in place that are not in tune with the culture of Ugandans. Ugandans, by and large, don't have a lot of discipline as a people. So when you're putting interventions that require certain levels of discipline, unless you're just doing your job to earn money and go back and slave, you have to do some research, okay? And understand our behavioral patterns, and then have customized measures in place, SOPs, that suit Ugandans and that help us combat this disease and fight it. The other thing you have to look at is the behavior of the disease, and I wish we could stop looking at the international community's responses and just replicating that. Can you hear me now? I wish we could stop looking at the international community responses and replicating that, and we have our researchers who we pay handsomely to do we pay them? I'm just imagining we pay them to just regurgitate whatever the Western countries are doing, or the neighboring countries. When you try to adopt maverick methods like Magufuli, you'll be ridiculed, but sometimes you have to look at the situation, you have to look at your country, and then adopt the method that suits you. Right now, we are at the point where government should stop telling people wear masks. Okay, they should do that. But in addition to that, they should tell us what to do when you get it. Because now hospitals cannot handle it. And if you follow the trend of most people who are dying, most of them spend a week or two with it without knowing, and then by the time they go to hospital, it is late. And these people have underlying conditions. So if they started distributing flyers and telling people that when you see this symptom, maybe you should start with zinc and this and vitamin C and vitamin D, and when this symptom comes, then you have to take this. And this may look like self-medication, but at the end of the day, our health centers are going to be stressed.
They are stressed already.
They are stressed already, and it can only get worse. And we don't have a vaccine yet. Even the vaccines that are on the market, the third world countries are going to get them last. Never mind that some of them, we have to store them at negative 70%, like the Pfizer vaccine, and we don't have that here. So by the time we are in queue to get the Moderna vaccine, unless you're going to go the Chinese or Russian way, but how many people are going to allow to get those? So for me, government needs now to sit down and get proper strategies to deal with this. Like I told you earlier, I got lost downtown yesterday, and I ended up near the park and Mukwana Gate, and nobody there even cares that there's COVID. There's nobody wearing a mask. There was nobody. Everybody was moving, shoving, and pushing each other. And so if you're going to continue preaching the same SOPs and ignoring the fact that they don't work or they're not in line with our behavioral patterns as a society.
The word mask is mentioned. Ofwono Opondo pulls out his and he puts it.
And remember, he's at that age,
I was eating
which
a
is
samosa,
vulnerable.
like you're eating samosa now, you have removed
You have to eat the samosa while sticking it under the mask and then, putting the mask back. Anyway, Oscar, so what I'm saying is it's time for government. First, we are paying a price for the bad healthcare system that we've had and put in place. And if we had done these health center force well, and we would have been more prepared for this. But too late for that. I think we should now put our resources to how do we stem this. We should study our society better, and our experts should come together to try and find ways. And one of the ways I would recommend is to teach people how to respond to it should they start getting symptoms and what looks like symptoms. And because most people think, oh, I'm having an allergy and I'm not feeling well, and after 2 weeks their lungs are already in such a bad state that they cannot survive it. So I think we should move to how people should respond should they get it, because we are there.
Joe?
Prevention is good.
Dr. Mabesa says he's been near you or with you on a TV show, and your mask was on the chin. Today I think you left it home. So, and Ssemujju says you are depending on youth. So you might be asymptomatic. And Dr. Mabesa says you may have immunity because you've been dealing with thousands of people already.
Well, I think I was last on a radio show with Dr. Mabesa like 4 months ago. I've not met him since then. Maybe he saw me in a dream somewhere.
No, maybe that 4 months ago, yes. And it's good you've
Look,
lost it.
I think it's important that we are all alive to the question of COVID-19 and do everything that we can. But there are humongous challenges, Oscar, we agreed to get into an election well knowing what an election is like. There was a time when Mr. Tibuhabura said anybody that organizes elections when we still have COVID-19 would be mad. He went ahead and organized an election. So I don't know who he was talking about at the time. Look, it's difficult that you get to have an election and you expect that business will be as normal, Honorable Ssemujju has told you he's very afraid of COVID and he's very careful. And he's also an elder, so he like he says. So he fears to catch COVID-19. But he has had challenges. He was arrested on nomination day because he had a procession. Later they delivered him. Last week he had a huge rally.
And police called COVID.
He was helped.
Oh, he was helped, But so last week he had a huge rally, and there were many people no social distancing, no masks, and I don't even want to blame him. He probably did invite all these people, but they came because that's what the election is like. So if somebody is careful and Ssemujju worried about COVID-19, things get to happen this way. It's because that's the nature of our elections. People keep talking about Honorable Kyagulanyi, my presidential candidate. He has not at any one time invited people, but they'll always wait for him in training centers. They've gathered. As he passes, he waves, they wave, and then of course police beats them up. But the same has happened for Mr. Tibuhabura. Okay, for him, of course, there's a bit of engineering because people will be given T-shirts. They'll scramble for them. They don't have clothes. Then I'm told each of them is given 5K. But he's been coming out of his car waving at them because that's politics. The only difference, Oscar, is that Honorable Kyagulanyi's supporters will be shot at, beaten, tear gassed, and arrested. But Mr. Tibu Haburas, no, we saw what happened in Kotido.
Let's finish this little bit, because I'm going to ask you about the reasons your principal has been invited to the Electoral Commission. Let me ask.
So you cut me short.
Yes. Let me cut you short for now. I'll get you back on the political angle.
But COVID has been politicized, Oscar, so it's amazing you say, no, let's first discuss COVID, we shall discuss politics later. What I've been discussing is the tethering between politics and COVID-19. It's been extremely politicized. Mr. Museveni is using COVID-19 to persecute his opponents. Because like I've told you, so yes, Honorable Chagulanyi supporters will gather uninvited and all of that. Police shoots at them. Mr. Tibu Haburas, it is okay, police is guarding them. So how do you tell me COVID-19 has not become a political issue?
No, just give me a second. We'll come back to it. Don't worry. Ofwono Opondo, Dennis Tumwine, an NRM person, tells you that doctors are arrogant in Kampala. Nteje Asimwe tells you, how did you work out the 200 people in church and rallies, but you cannot allow 5 people in a bar. Then also tells you, Ssemujju, there was a motion in Parliament to thank Museveni for having handled COVID so well. Dr. Mwewesa, what was the role of the donated vehicles in the fight against COVID? So, on microphone.
Before I go there, Honorable Ssemujju made the 2 statements that I think were inaccurate. On one, the government of Uganda gives incentives to every investor who qualifies, whether local or not. We can discuss the proportionality of local investors who have received investment.
Okay, you stopped me to move to all
But
discuss politics.
no,
But
you did the let me make my point.
Joe, don't worry. I'm going to give you ample time.
2, in this current budget, in the current budget, the Honorable Ssemujju has passed a tax amendment bill, which says there will be a tax imposed on every item imported if that item is being manufactured here as a way to protect our local industry. So those are 2 points I wanted to clarify on. Now on
rising COVID numbers.
COVID, yes, I can't add on the numbers, the scenarios, beyond what Dr. Mwewesa has said. I was privileged to attend a briefing 2 days ago where they said Kampala now has close to 50% of infection, of quarantine, of actually people in hospitals, of all the cases in the country. So Kampala is worrying, and obviously with the politics, candidates, particularly presidential candidates, are coming to converge on Kampala, and then we go to our up-country festive season of Christmas and New Year. That is worrying. I have made a personal decision that I will not travel to the village to celebrate Christmas. I am a laid-back person on Christmas, but usually I'm in the village. So I have made a personal decision not to. Now, Honorable Ssemujju and the NAFI are saying that because the African way of socialization has been in a certain way, therefore we can afford perhaps to be reckless or not minding.
Who said these things?
I don't want to be like the other person. You know, remember some time back there was a minister who said that women who dress scantily qualify to be assaulted. I don't want to be like that. Every day we have challenges, but we try to mitigate them. This COVID perhaps is like malaria, perhaps is like HIV and any other communicable diseases or the diseases that are rampant in our communities. And therefore, I think, yes, government has done its job of publicizing sensitization and putting some measures that I think if we complied with them individually and as community, we can mitigate. We can mitigate the spread. About preparedness, no country in the world, perhaps China, was adequately prepared for COVID. Consequently, the massive deaths in countries we believed had systems. And no country has better systems perhaps than America, but they are the ones now having the highest rate of infection and deaths. By this morning,
many countries have better health systems than America and healthcare systems. By this
morning, they were talking of 292,000 deaths more than any other country. So, anyway, the point I'm making is that America, Italy, Sweden, they have far better system than us. So the question of preparedness, nobody was adequately prepared because as a new disease, a new virus, nobody knew how it moves. Now, in our case, we did relatively well, and I want to say we have done relatively well. Now, something about SOPs. You asked Dr. Mwewesa, I slightly differ from him in the sense that if you take Ofwono, yes, people have lowered their guards, but at least in Ofwono, their entry point and exit point. It would have been possible if market leaders and the vendors had put, for example, washing facilities, sanitizing facilities. Even if you don't perhaps do social distancing, if you have washing facilities, sanitizers, and mask, that makes it a difference from a public rally. Yes, public rallies, I know Honorable Ssemujju has said we are weaponizing, we are politicizing, we are using COVID as a way to suppress free assemblies. You can make that choice as an individual or as a group. But I think it is necessary that even when our supporters come to join us in a frenzy, it's important that, for example, if a candidate, parliamentary, local government, or presidential, says, yes, my people, you have come, or my supporters, you have come, and they throw in a word of caution, advising supporters or attendees of public rallies to be mindful, have your mask, go and wash, social distance, and so on. I think it would go a long way to mitigate. Now, Nafi says, why would we copy this? Uganda is part of the international community. The international community may not be perfect. But in matters like this, if the World Health Organization has given certain standard procedures, I think Uganda and like many other countries were operating. Uganda did not do anything that was markedly different from what other countries did. Stopping congregations in schools, stopping worship congregation at places of worship, stopping businesses, closing borders. These are, at the time, measures that were advised by the experts in epidemiology. And so I think it is erroneous to accuse Uganda for just imitating. Now, of course, in many instances, we did minor adjustments. You remember, and Nafi, you were here blaming the president and government of Uganda. We delayed to close the airport. We delayed to close our border points. Now that we have made some little, the testing is still going on. Yes, we have
final sentence.
We have made relaxation of the economy because we must survive.
Okay.
But that relaxation has not removed the SOPs. So we need to keep the SOPs. Perhaps we need to add more, depending on how government, how the scientists are advising.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Mwewesa, you're back on the line.
Yes, Oscar.
Yes, I have a couple of comments to people who have been commenting on your comments.
Yes.
Edward Ochom in London, listening to you. He says, do you think anyone is listening to you? Then Teje Asimwe in Kampala says,